All right, and we are ready to get started. Suhani is in the spotlight now. So, hi Suhani, let me just introduce you real quick to all our participants over here. Suhani founded Maina Mahila Foundation with a mission to bring equal access to healthcare services for all. She's been working in urban slum areas and rural communities, researching and designing strategies on projects ranging from adolescent girl health, water and sanitation to social protection policies. Suhani has also been a recipient of the Queen's Young Leaders Awards. And over to you, Suhani. Can you introduce yourself to us and tell us what Maina is doing, what you guys are working towards, and about you as well?
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much, Sanjana, for having me here today. I think we're really happy to represent MENA. So I started MENA along with a few slum community leaders whom I had met when I was about 14, 15 years of age. So this was in 2010, 2011 time. And at that time, I was attending school in Bombay, close to the Dharavi slums. And I would go often to actually just meet some of the women there to talk about sanitation and toilet related issues and things around that. The health outcomes and the challenges that the women were experiencing, and essentially walking a distance to a public toilet and then being mentally and sexually harassed on the way. And time and again, I kept hearing a lot of these stories that stemmed from women's lack of agency and just how women were not able to stand up for themselves, and they didn't realize that they had a community of people around them who could really help and support each other. At the same time, women felt there were also some women that were prominent leaders, and there were things that they were doing very well, and I tried to understand what those were. And it was really that those women were able to showcase some sort of financial stability and confidence that came from the financial stability and income that we knew that we had to emulate in whatever we did to try to empower women. So in about 2014 or 15, we sort of presented a question to a lot of different types of age groups and groups of women across different slum communities in Bombay, asking them what really empowers them and what they feel like makes them very confident to talk about themselves and in front of others. And they all said, well, it was something that if they had tangibly seen a product that they could make and see that this is what we have done, then they would feel really proud of themselves. And so we started brainstorming what those products should be, and it really came down to, that's when the women themselves suggested sanitary napkins, because this was a very tangible product, and it seemed like a very clean sort of solution where you know exactly what the success metric looks like if you can get the pads in the hands of as many women as possible and how many pads you're making. And at the same time, it starts a lot of conversations around this topic that women were now uncomfortable talking about with others, but if they started doing, it could really build the networks that did not exist today. So when MENA founded in 2015, it was really around the three pillars of we employ. So we provide financial stability to women in whatever we do. Two is we improve menstrual health, which is a topic that is very tabooed. And so we want to break those ice barriers that are holding women back. And three is we're building women's networks. So we're trying to help women understand that they're not in this alone and that women are doing this together. So that's really been the genesis of MENA when we started.
Right, right. And what are some challenges that you kind of had to overcome on the way, Suhani?
Yeah, I mean, all the time and even now. So I think with MENA, some of the first few challenges have really had to do with the fact that we're a very young and sort of inexperienced team when it comes to working with manufacturers. And so we are social enterprise. So we actually are manufacturing these products, and not just sanitary napkins, but also maternity napkins. And we really had to deal with lots of vendors and also building trust amongst them and also amongst the community. Community trust building was something that we had already been working on indirectly for a number of years because I was already working with the slum leaders and working with the slum residents for various other projects before that. So we sort of knew each other, and we were leveraging these community slum networks already. So when we're talking about these really taboo topics with religious minority groups as well, and with groups that have a lot of, not traditionally, they've backlashed on this, they were actually a lot more open to listen to us. But where we actually experienced a lot of challenges on the ground were really in particular religious segments where we felt that we didn't have expertise to talk about and to dispel certain myths that they just would not listen to. So we constantly try to work with more and more religious leaders, I think, along the way, and still struggle with that, especially when we go to new geographies and new communities where we yet don't have reach, to try to really identify who those particular people are who are very influential in building and maintaining the taboos, is very crucial. At the same time, from the business standpoint as well, I think us building our credibility and our trust amongst the vendors has constantly been a challenge. I think this is also where, as a smaller organization, your quantities are not large enough for people to really take you seriously. And believe it or not, I mean, you probably know this as well, the menstrual hygiene spaces India is entirely male dominated still. So it is working for female products, but the business side of things is entirely run by men. In fact, some of the largest manufacturing units and organizations are all run by men. And in fact, they're staffed by men as well. So the only place where you see women are probably at the low cost manufacturing self-help group level, where the people that are employed at the face of things are women. But in fact, the people still running those self-help group organizations are also men. So they recognize and they understand less about the product, and us trying to explain quality of the product and why these things really matter has been so challenging over time. And us trying to explain to them that, we know our customers very well, we know what women really want, and we want them to be designed in this way, and we do not want any perforated net, we only want cottony layers, but it increases the cost. We understand it's okay, but we need this to happen. It's very challenging to negotiate those things, I think.
Right, right. So how does Mina work on the business side, Suhani? And tell us how we can help, how we can contribute.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for asking that question. From the business standpoint, I mean, so MENA is a social enterprise, so we are both generating revenue and reliant on donations. So most of our activities have to do with providing pad packets door to door to women in slum communities. And so we are manufacturing these and then also providing it door to door. And that's where we actually require subsidization through donations, because we can't provide it at a price point that is higher than our cost. So we are actually incurring a loss with every packet that we are selling, because the cost of manufacturing things locally is very high. So that's one. I think in terms of our how we actually trying to sustain ourselves financially and how the business model really works. We're also subsidizing ourselves using maternity napkins that we sell to hospitals and maternity homes and clinics, which is where we can really sell in bulk. And also for the sanitary napkins now, we're trying to sell in bulk so that we can subsidize some of our door-to-door and our last mile women's sales as well. And in terms of how Pinkbox can help, I think that, and other viewers can also help. I think there's so many different ways. The first thing is, if you really want to support us, definitely check out some of the COVID relief work that we're doing right now. We're working on this 8-point plan where we are providing direct relief support in terms of sanitary napkins. We've reached out to, I think, more than now 15,000 families and women just through that, manufacturing face masks and providing them, having a women's helpline to get at domestic violence cases and complications during your periods as well, ordering pad packets and so on. And we've also started and launched a MENA Health app on Android, which one can download as well. So I think if people would like to support us on these fronts, they can just go to our website, which is www.menamhilla.com. And you can read a lot about it and then support us in any way that you'd like and can. And two is, if you'd like to volunteer with us as well, there are so many different opportunities now. In fact, MENA is working harder than we ever have, because this is a time where we are actually located in Shivaji Nagar, Deonar area and M East Ward in Mumbai, which is the hardest hit. And so we are, because of COVID, and so we are actually on the ground at the front lines providing this relief work and support. And we constantly need volunteers who can call up some of our beneficiaries to provide them with awareness, even on call constantly, and following up with them. You can also volunteer and support us in so many different ways. If you just get in touch with the team, and all the details on our website as well, that'll be great. And do follow us on social media channels, which is @MENA-Mahila, and you can get a lot more updates as well.
Awesome. That's so nice to hear, Suhani. In fact, for everyone who's participating right now, all of us here at the Pinkbox helped coordinate a relief activity just about a fortnight back, I think, where we procured about 200 plus sanitary pads from Mina, and we had it delivered within 18 hours to our beneficiaries who were in Andheri. So kudos on that, Suhani. The speed of operations, the turnaround time was so excellent. And tell us about,
Our
sorry,
team entirely. I'd like to give a shout out to Bhavna from our team and like our entire team that's been working so hard on this. Really, really proud of them.
right. In fact, Bhavna was actually traveling. She was going back home that day, if I'm not wrong. All right,
Yeah.
Suhani. So tell us about the Queen's Young Leaders Award. How did you come to know about it? What the process was like, and the whole experience.
Yeah, it's actually been a long time since I've spoken about this. So, the Queen Young Leaders Award, I think I found out about it through someone's LinkedIn profile. I don't even remember how, it was just sort of like a matter of chance. I had applied thinking that, I mean, these are one of those things that, I mean, you're going to go meet the Queen. This is like a dream. Like, I don't think this is ever going to happen. Like, well, this makes no sense. But I mean, it's just somehow it did. And I mean, it was even then, even once it happened, I was like, okay, but it can't possibly be true that I'm actually going to be actually going to London and actually going and meeting her. But it just, I don't know, things just sort of like snowballed and this happened. And then we were actually in Cambridge for a week with all these really amazing Queen Young leaders from like 52 other Commonwealth countries, one or two people from each country. And it was such a phenomenal experience. This was a time when I was actually living in the Philippines, and I'd been living in the Philippines for about 5 months working on water sanitation projects with UNICEF there, and a company called ID Insight doing some impact evaluations. And I felt that this time away and going to London and Cambridge and meeting all these leaders actually prompted me to come back and sort of quit my job and work on MENA full time. So this was a very powerful trip for me. In fact, one of the reasons I'm doing my PhD as well right now is because of some conversations I had on this trip about what is it that I really want to be doing in life and achieving, and where I really see MENA going, and what are the gaps in where we are at and where we really need more technical skills and expertise to really grow. So the Queen Young Leader community is just such a vibrant community of people from all different fields and backgrounds, and the kinds of people that they helped us meet. So, I mean, the Queen was at the very end. In fact, that was not even the highlight of the whole trip by the end of it, because by that time we had met such incredible mentors, some of whom I'm still in touch with now, and they still mentor me, and friends. So people, the other Queen Young leaders who I'm still in touch with, and we work together on various different projects as well. I think like those are long-term relationships that we've really built. And then I think meeting the Queen is such a great point of credibility that I think I started to appreciate a lot more much later as well. It's just that if we tell people we're working on menstrual hygiene in India in an era of Padman, people are often just dismissing you as, oh, so you're also like Pad women and you're just doing the same thing. And it's very difficult to explain, especially to men as well, that the topic of menstrual hygiene is actually, I mean, firstly, it should be much broader. It should be menstrual health, and we've sort of reduced it to just access to napkins. And that's like one little piece of the whole ecosystem and puzzle, that we are not talking about the other things, and we're thinking that the problem is actually solved, and it's not. So I think that in that sort of, in living in this sort of an era, we really need more credibility to say that no, this organization is legit, and the kind of work that they're doing is not just providing access to napkins, but it is so much more, and it is very relevant to what the community really needs. So I think it was like a stamp on our credibility as well, and just an incredible life-changing experience for me personally. Thanks for asking that. I'm also happy to like just keep talking about anything, or just take questions. Anything is fine.
Right. So we're open for questions, you guys. In case you would like to ask Sohani something, you would like to reach out to her, now is the time. We'll also send you links to Mina's Instagram, so you can DM them as well. Sohani, one question I had. I was actually doing a bunch of research on Mina, and so do we call her HRH Megan now? I'm not really sure. No? Okay, so
Yeah.
okay, so how is Miss Meghan Markle's visit to MENA and her experience, meeting all the women who are working who are facilitating MENA? Tell us about that.
Yeah. So Meghan Markle and I had actually first met in 2016 in New York at a Glamour College Women of the Year award ceremony place where she had come in as a mentor to one of the other, like, so there was 10 of us girls there, and each of us was paired with a mentor, and she was a mentor to someone else. And there they announced about MENA and the kind of work that we were doing, the problems that we were solving on the ground in urban slum communities in India. And she was so sort of, I think, just touched by it, which I did not know then, but many months later sort of received an email from her saying that, hey, actually, I've been trying to reach you. I really want to come and visit your organization in India. Can I come at some point? When are you all available? I'm planning to come, like, in a few months. We sort of organized that trip. And at the time, I mean, she was a Suits actress, and that's all we knew. And I'd never watched Suits, so I actually did not really know much about her at all. And I was like, okay, cool. I mean, somebody important, I guess, wants to visit us. Might as well, organize a really nice visit, and so that she can actually see what we are doing. And then by the time she actually came to India, I think she was rumored to be dating Prince Harry. And so at that time, there was so much of security around her. And so, I mean, initially we were like sort of irritated at first, that, just thinking about how much of like this other peripheral sort of drama that we had to ensure, and nobody could have their phones on them. And for 2 days it was complete lockdown, like we were sealed off and so on. And nobody could know that this was happening. But then when she came, she was just such a kind, sincere person who was not like a typical person who's coming to India to visit a poor community to learn about these people in slums who are starving and dying. It was just not like that, which is what I was really fearing. It was very nuanced. In fact, she was asking such detailed questions. She had done her research. She had a notepad and a pen, and she was writing notes when we were talking. She was sitting on the floor eating with us. I mean, she was so chill and so calm and very like poignant actually in her thoughts. And she was talking a lot about just action items. What can we do next? So like, what does this mean now, Suhani? What are the big dreams? Where's this vision? Where are we really going? So I think we've really appreciated her as a support and as a mentor to us. And I think that she really appreciated the fact that we were entirely grassroots. I mean, we did not hire a person from outside the slum community many years into the organization. So we were entirely run. In fact, most of our management, at least all the ground level production, sales, everything is sort of managed by women from slums who have been upskilled. And now as we grow, we've started to hire more and more people who are not living in and from slum communities. So she, I think, also really appreciated the fact that we were a grassroots level organization working very locally and growing not by numbers in terms of, we're going to X number of cities and that's our goal, but really by how can we in depth actually help one woman at a time, but really try to support her in all of her needs. And then urban slums themselves are such a huge challenge. And just even within the city of Mumbai right now, that I think we're really trying to tackle that problem first. And I think she really appreciates that as well.
All
So yeah, I
right.
think that experience was that. Yeah, and then after that, of course, she invited like a few of us to go to the wedding, and we actually had
Right.
women from the slums actually go and get on a plane for the first time, and so
Right.
that was life changing for them as well. I think so. I think that was also very powerful.
Right. What, I mean, that was going to be my next question. What was that experience like, the wedding?
Surreal. I don't know. I can't believe it ever even happened, and it happened 2 years ago now. So I think it's been very. I mean, I don't even know at the time what was really happening. There was so much of media frenzy. People were talking about this all the time and sort of hounding us with questions about personal questions regarding the couple that they thought that we somehow had like private access to. And then like we were also at the same time trying to figure out how do we best get the donations, how do we like ensure all the press and everything, because we were getting calls from all kinds of press everywhere around the world, and we had no PR team. I mean, it was just me and few interns and then our field team. And like literally we had no idea what to do. So I mean, there was just like, it was such a buzz. But when we were actually in London and in Windsor Castle, I think it was just, I mean, surreal. I think I was one of the only sort of non-celebrities there. Everybody else like had all these media teams around them, and then I'm sort of floating around, but really learning so much about just like how they how they interacted and why we were sort of called there, and we really appreciate the reason why they had called there and what we were really representing. And I think the cause of menstrual hygiene was spoken about so much at that time in London, also because MENA was present at the wedding and we represented a very particular cause. And so I think that's something that we kept highlighting, and that's something that Megan kept highlighting, and that the wedding really made sure that it did. So I think overall the effect was very powerful and has had long-lasting effects for us. We've had a lot of collaborators, some amount of funding also, but a lot of traction and credibility because of it.
Right. And we have a question. So sorry to cut you, Suhani, but we're almost there at 10:50. We have one question, and then you could give us a closing note. So Saili is asking us, how was your journey from a student to a young entrepreneur, and what is your inspiration?
Yeah, great question, Saili. So I am still a student and I am still an entrepreneur. So I think the two are really hand in hand, and it's really been a journey about how do I balance both, and how do I give justice to both of them. So I think when I started MENA, it was the 6th startup idea, and before that I'd been iterating various types of different topics and organizations, never actually with the understanding that I'm going to start an organization as such. It was just topics that on the ground, because I'd been working in slums for a number of years, that just different topics and challenges that kept coming up as things that we needed to tackle. And it was just sort of problem solving them. And while problem solving them as part of class projects or even just outside of classes, just trying to really think through this myself or with classmates. I think at Duke, which is where I did my undergrad, and where MENA was really born as an organization. I think that really actually classwork and interactions with other inspiring students around me who constantly drove me to do better, and people who I looked up to, I think really helped. So those conversations there, and then simultaneously having conversations on the ground with the potential beneficiaries of MENA. And so together we were able to start the organization while I was a student. And that also meant that the university can give resources as well to support you in building the organization and providing mentorship. I still work with Duke very closely, and I mentor some of the current students now as well, and then some of their alums mentor me. So it's actually been a very nice symbiotic sort of like process. And then in terms of what happened afterwards, I was really thinking about taking the plunge and working on MENA full time versus continuing my further schooling, and I decided to actually take some time off and just work on MENA full time. That was by far the best year I've ever had. I think I would do it again, and it really was necessary in between all of the studies to sort of reorient yourself and recognize and realize what is it that you really want to do. And oftentimes, I think as students, we lose focus, and there's too many things that sort of interest us, which still happens. But I think there's still like a guiding light that I know now that I'm heading towards this goal. And whatever I do now, I actually am looking at things through a MENA lens. And this is how it could support or help MENA. And I think that's been really, really helpful as well. And the inspiration for me have always been women's stories. So the compelling stories and the things that we see on the ground, I mean, that constantly inspires you to change things and do things better. Yeah.
Awesome. That is so amazing, Suhani. So I will be sending MENA's Instagram link in the chat box shortly. And all right. So Saili says, thank you for answering, Suhani. Thank you for being here, Suhani. This is so amazing. I have loved all the work that MENA is doing, and we're actually planning something, you and I, the Pink Box and MENA Mahila Foundation. So I'm really looking forward to that as well. And awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Suhani.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Anjana. I think this is a really good conversation, and I'm glad that we're collaborating as well. Looking forward to that. Okay.
Awesome. Amazing. So for all the participants here, we will be back in 6 minutes with Vandana Saxena Poria, who's going to talk about disrupting your mindsets. So we'll be back in 6 minutes. I am going to ask you guys to wait. And thank you so much, Suhani. This has been amazing.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.